It looks like Mercedes is calling it quits. They can't build an engine to be compliant with the EU7 regulations, which are right around the corner. And unfortunately, they have to reach out to the likes of BMW to now provide engines for Mercedes-Benz because their Mercedes engines are no longer acceptable or won't be able to meet certain criteria. Now, while Mercedes-Benz unfortunately has gone through a pile of hardships, we know that they went from glorious screaming V8 twin turbo engines or big naturally aspirated V8 engines or even V12 engines. Mercedes-Benz has had a history of those absolute glorious engines. The problem is these regulations, these mandates are now dictating that all of these Europeans specifically, and it will translate and swing over to other countries, but certainly in Europe, the EU7 regulation stipulates that, by the time 2035 rolls around and even before that, there has to be a vast reduction and essentially elimination of carbon emissions. Now, in doing that or reducing it to the amount that's acceptable under the regulations, Mercedes-Benz realized that these big V8 engines couldn't go. They wouldn't work. Their V12s wouldn't go. And we also know that Mercedes, in the last couple of years, they came out with the C63 AMG, which it's a hybrid, turbocharged, 4-cylinder engine. No AMG owner would possibly in their right mind buy that car. And guess what? They didn't. Nobody bought that new AMG with the 4-cylinder, and therefore sales were in the tank. Not a big shocker by most people that know the brand. Then on top of it, they come out with vehicles like the EQE and EQS, which on paper they're fascinating, but they're extraordinarily expensive on the front side. And on the back end, people are losing as much as 60 or 70% of the value in 1 or 2 term finance or lease terms. And so they're just not the vehicle most consumers are interested in buying because it's a literal money pit, a money pit beyond recognition. Then out comes, lo and behold, well, we got to keep digging our grave even deeper. So they come out with the pure electric G-Wagon, hoping that that's going to spark it because they're trying to ride on the coattails of the popularity that they saw a few short years ago with the G-Wagon, the G63. Absolutely was trading hands for way above sticker price. People were overpaying for those vehicles. Lo and behold, even that vehicle came out as a total flop. They're filing up the lots. Nobody's buying them. They're just sitting there taking up space, weighing down the asphalt, melting the asphalt because the weight of these things are so ginormous. The fact remains is Mercedes-Benz has been struggling. EVs, nobody wants them, especially at the price point. What people, when we're looking for EVs, they wanted something, at least if it's cheap, runabout. But people just want internal combustion engines by and large. And ultimately, Mercedes-Benz has been aggressively pushing towards the EV transformation, of course, naturally trying to adhere to these EU7 regulations. But in doing so, they also realize that there's still a market for some of their 4-cylinder engines, their turbo engines, and they're, mating those up to hybrid drivetrains. But they realized a lot of their engines would not comply. They didn't have the emissions controls that a lot of these expectations were set upon them. So they started reaching out to some of these Chinese manufacturers. Now, some of these manufacturers did provide a drivetrain that would slot right in there to some of the Mercedes or these future Mercedes-Benz cars, only to find out recently, now due to aggressive tariff response, what we're starting to see is the taxation on those vehicles now would be far out and above what they could absolutely afford. So now Mercedes is saying, well, we can't afford to put these Chinese manufactured engines in our cars or team them up to a hybrid drivetrain. We need help. What are we going to do? Because if they're not selling cars, I mean, what is a car brand if they can't sell cars? We've seen a lot of their sales go down the proverbial toilet, but it's quite unfortunate because what was such a legendary company many years ago has really changed. And, this transformation has really stirred up the nest and really created something that most loyalists just don't recognize. I mean, think about what happened with Jaguar. Jaguar, as well as another manufacturer that sort of fell off the wayside due to some misinformed calculations as to loyalists and brand loyalists and people that actually traditionally bought the cars. And then on top of it, you try to relive the brand and try to rebrand it and create something that looks odd and obscure and certainly not something that aligns with the typical core buyer. And now they're in the proverbial toilet. Well, herein lies Mercedes, trying to find their way. And so now they're reaching out for some other manufacturer. This is the absolute funniest part. I'm just reading it. I just came across this, and it's absolutely humorous because Mercedes-Benz is reaching out potentially, word on the street, to BMW to supply Mercedes-Benz with BMW's tried and true B48, that's their 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, and utilize BMW's engine in Mercedes cars. Now, the B48 is a reliable car, or an engine. It's a great engine, creates about 255 horsepower for BMW. It fits in a lot of their different chassis, and as well, it does potentially mate up to hybrid drivetrain. So it's versatile, it's powerful, and BMW has found a way to make it reliable, or relatively for, that type of a brand. As we know, BMW has struggled with durability issues in the past. They've certainly carved their way past that, and they're in much better shape today. But now this absolutely is devastating. Mercedes-Benz, having to say, by the looks of it, maybe saying goodbye to some of their internal combustion engines and replacing it with something that BMW's got. Could it be? Maybe they're looking at BMW's inline 6 to B58 at some point. Time will tell. Things are shaping up. It's an odd market right now. And some of these brands like Mercedes and Jaguar are literally unrecognizable today. Could this be the end for Mercedes? Could this be the beginning? We're starting to see some of those hard times fall upon the Stellantis groups. Even GM with all these recalls. And we'll talk about their new Corvette recall coming up as well on top of their L87s. Things aren't looking too good for GM either. But Mercedes-Benz now is staring down the proverbial barrel. Anyway, please do share, like. Don't forget to share. Drop me a line. What are you thinking? Do you think that there's actually a better future for Mercedes? Or do you project that this trend and this spiraling down the proverbial electrification space is going to be their ultimate demise? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.